He came in running and screaming.
Well, it did smell a little fishy to me. Oh yeah.
I heard he came here on a whaler's boat. A what?
It was quite a sight. A single Hebrew in the middle of an Assyrian capital city proclaiming that we're all going to be destroyed.
God is great and merciful. We are so thankful for Jonah.
Jonah rocks! Where's Jonah now? You know, I don't know where that man is.
I'm not sure where he is.
I first met Jonah at the Joppa seaport. He got on my ship we were sailing to Tarsus. He's a pleasant fellow.
Didn't really talk to Jonah much. Right after he boarded, he went to his cabin and fell right asleep.
Yes, I was on the same ship to Tarsus that Jonah was on.
Yes, my husband was on the same ship as the Jonah man.
We were about 3 hours out, and it had been a pretty smooth trip until that storm came. And what a storm it was.
Yes, a terrible storm came upon us.
Yes, it was a dreadful storm, don't you know? Everyone began praying to their gods.
The ship was rocking back and forth. The waves were so high. It was unlike any storm I'd ever seen.
Good afternoon. I am Mariah of Edom, and this is a Joppa News Network Storm Track Alert. A tremendous storm has engulfed the Great Sea. We now go to our meteorologist, Darius of Dan, who is on location. How's the weather out there, Darius?
In all my years as a weatherman, I've never seen a storm this big just appear out of nowhere. I don't see how anyone traveling by boat could survive. It truly is a terrible day to be out at sea.
The storm was getting worse. We all prayed to our gods, but none of them answered.
That's when I remembered Jonah. Somehow, with all the noise the storm was making, he was still asleep in his cabin. He had not prayed to his God yet.
After receiving no answer from our gods, the crew began to cast lots to discover why the storm was upon us. The lot fell on Jonah.
Then he said the most amazing thing. He said that his God was the one that created the earth and the sea, and that he was running from God, and the only way that the waters would calm down is if we threw him overboard.
I didn't want to throw him in,
Oh, the poor soul.
but I did.
And the moment he hit the water, the winds and the waves, they stopped.
They stopped.
They stopped.
Amazing, don't you know?
I don't see any end in sight. Incredibly, the storm has just vanished.
I can't tell you how this has changed my life. I know now that there are not many gods, but there is one true God.
I believe in the God of Jonah, who is also the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I was so excited to find out that Jonah's still alive and still preaching God's truth.
I was transferred to Nineveh about a year ago. And I tell you what, those are some of the wickedest, foulest people in the whole Assyrian Empire. Until a month ago, I wouldn't have recommended anybody come in. But a lot's changed since that stinky little man showed up.
I didn't even know his name was Jonah. He came running through here so fast.
40 days! 40 days!
He prophesied that in 40 days our city was going to be destroyed. Well, that's probably what our city deserved. I know it's what I deserved.
I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the way he looked. Or maybe it was the fact that he was an Israelite. Maybe the way he smelled. But when he spoke that in 40 days our city was to be destroyed, I believed him.
Nineveh was a very wicked city before Jonah came. We practiced great evil. We conquered nations brutally. Our bloodlust was never ending.
This is a great city. It takes a good 3 days to cross. And there's thousands of people, thousands of stubborn, violent, wicked people, myself included. But after hearing Jonah preach, we believed in God.
Nineveh, as is all of Assyria, is a people of conquerors. As such, it is customary for every king to lead a military engagement every year of his rule. I have led several, for I have been king for many years, and many of those years have been quite rough.
Several years ago, a plague had broken out. It killed many citizens and livestock alike. A few years after that, the midday sun was completely blotted out of the sky. And then another plague broke out, and it was far worse than the first one.
I saw all of these terrible things as a sign of something far worse yet to come. I prayed to my gods constantly for guidance, but none answered me. Then I heard the strangest, most miraculous thing. A Hebrew who was said to have been spit out of the belly of Dagon himself was in our city.
Reports of the Hebrew man named Jonah spread swiftly through the city. His warning of 40 days caused quite a stir amongst the people. It didn't take long for the news to reach the royal chambers. I personally told the king of Jonah and his words.
That's when I realized the plagues, the covering of the sun, they were all divine judgments, but not from my gods. But the God of creation, the God of the Hebrews, the one true God.
The king knew the effect that Jonah's words had on the people. I firsthand witnessed the effects it had on him. But by seeing the change that occurred in him, by seeing his absolute belief, well, that's when I believed. And that's why the king issued his decree.
Citizens of Nineveh, do not let man, beast, herds, or flock taste of anything. Do not let them eat or drink water. Both man and beast must be covered with sackcloth. And let every man call upon God earnestly, that each may turn from his wicked ways and the violence which is in his hand. And perhaps God will turn and relent and withdraw his burning anger, so that we will not perish.
In 40 days, God's wrath was to be upon us. But in 40 days, something more amazing, more glorious happened. God's mercy was upon us.
The change throughout this city is unbelievable. People have turned from their wicked ways.
I made so many sacrifices to my gods, and yet they never answered my prayers the way the Hebrew God has.
The Hebrew God is a God of mercy and love.
What would I like to say to Jonah?
Sorry we had to throw you overboard, but thank you for obeying God so we could come to know him.
Thank you, Jonah, for sharing the knowledge of the true God with us.
If only Jonah knew the effect he had on me, crew. Thank you, Jonah.
Thank you so much for preaching to us the truth that we needed to hear.
Oh, sing him that song that you wrote about him. Yes.
No. God is so great, and the waves calm down. Thank you.
Jonah, wherever you are, you'll be happy to know that we've repented of our sins.
We believe in your God, and he has decided to spare us.
I imagine that the great joy of this city is only overwhelmed by the joy Jonah must be feeling for doing the Lord's work.
You want to know what happened? I'll tell you what happened. My name is Jonah, son of Amittai, born in Gath-Hepher. And the word of the Lord came upon me. Go to the great city of Nineveh. Preach against it, for its wickedness has come up before me. Nineveh! You don't know how evil that city is. They deserved God's wrath. But no great ground tremble, no fire falling from the sky, nothing. It's still right there, not a brick out of place. I knew he would spare these people, because that's who he is. He's gracious. He's merciful. He's slow to anger, abounding in love, and relenting in disaster. That's exactly why I headed to Tarshish. But he wouldn't have that. So what'd he do? He sent a big fish, or whale, or some kind of sea monster, not really sure. Didn't get a good look from the outside. Got nice and familiar with its insides, though.
What was it like?
What was it like? It was like being in the tomb. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like being buried 3 days, 3 nights. It was dark. It was quiet. It was cold. I felt my life fainting away. And before it was gone, I remembered the Lord. From the belly of Sheol, I cried out, and He heard my voice. I was dead, and He brought me to life. He brought me up from the pit. My salvation belongs to the Lord. And all that was done so that I would come here to declare God's righteous judgment, that Nineveh was to be destroyed. But what happens? I tell you, if anything else goes wrong, excuse me for a moment.
You should have just let me die. Can't believe this happened. I knew it would happen. That's why I wanted to go to Tarshish.
Fellow Ninevites, today is a day of great celebration. For the Lord's great mercies have fallen upon us. For we were a wicked nation, set in our sinful ways, worthy of nothing but death itself. Yet something happened, something that can only be described as a miracle. God, the creator of all things, sent us a sign. He sent us Jonah. Yes, Jonah, the Hebrew prophet who endured darkness for 3 whole days to give us God's salvation. Yet 40 days, and we are still here. And let all of our Assyrian brothers, those who still practice their violent and wicked deeds, turn from their sinful nature, so that the calamity we were spared be not visited upon them. Only through grace have we been saved. Through the grace of the one true God. And we will sacrifice to Him with a voice of loud thanksgiving. Let the world learn from Nineveh what we have been taught from God. What God taught us through Jonah.